Talk about Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, the Jaguars are 3-10 on the season. But how do we get to this point? Because just last season, the team was 8-3, and the year before that, they made the NFL playoffs and they defeated the Los Angeles Chargers in a playoff game. It's a lot to talk about in this video, and I want to start off with the front office and the coaching staff. The Khan family, sweet family. They're nice. They're patient with their coaches. Usually a team would go out there and they would fire someone like Doug Peterson when you can't go out there and win enough football games this season. But they've been very patient with Doug Peterson because he helped them make the NFL playoffs a few years ago. With all of that being talked about, Trent Baalke has to go because he's 30-64. This should be his last stint in the NFL as a general manager. It's not working out. Trent Baalke has not been the best general manager with the Jacksonville Jaguars, to say the least, and he was a terrible general manager with the San Francisco 49ers. He basically dismantled that entire franchise, and it took them years to get back to prominence. When I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have a bad general manager. You have a coach in Doug Peterson. This is my thing with Doug Peterson. On one end, Doug Peterson is not a terrible coach. On the other end, he's not a great coach either. I understand that he has a Super Bowl championship underneath his belt. He had a lot of successful seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. He won that Super Bowl with Nick Foles. But part of the reason to why I'm ready for them to move on from Doug Peterson is because he did not move on from Press Taylor. If you're a Jaguars fan, you know how I feel about Press Taylor. Press Taylor is not a good offensive coordinator, and Doug Peterson is not the same coach that he once was a few years ago. When I look at this Jaguars team, the players have not stepped up, but this coaching staff has been abysmal. They had a bad defensive coordinator last season. You bring in Ryan Nielsen, at the time a very good defensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons. They had a very good defense last year, and they miss him right now. But I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. You're 31st in passing by a yard. They're a yard away from being the worst passing defense in the NFL. The only team that's worse than them is the Baltimore Ravens. And their rushing defense is not good either. At least last season, your rushing defense was able to go out there and stop running backs and make teams one-dimensional. And at least you had the excuse to say, hey, we're dealing with a lot of injuries, including Tyson Campbell, who has missed time this season. And that's been the constant with him in his career. Has been able to stay healthy. When he's on the field, he's a very good cornerback. That's why they gave him a 3-year extension. But they don't have good players around him. Ronald Darby is not a good veteran cornerback anymore. I look at the safeties that they have. They're not good in pass coverage. They need to bring in some more safeties and some more cornerbacks to help out Tyson Campbell, and Tyson Campbell has to stay healthy. When I look at their front seven is solid. It's full of talent. Trayvon Walker is a very good player. I know that a lot of people like to basically dunk on Trent Baalke for going out there and selecting him over Aiden Hutchinson. At the time, it was crazy. Aiden Hutchinson was the best defensive player in that draft class, and he still is. But Trayvon Walker coming out of Georgia was a lot of upside. Amazing against stopping the run, can get to the quarterback. I look at Trayvon Walker right now. He is still a very good player. You can make the argument that he's their best pass rusher. But missing out on Aiden Hutchinson, that is a huge black eye, because Aiden Hutchinson is just different at the pass rushing position. But Trayvon Walker is not a bad player. They went with preference here, and their preference was Trayvon Walker, a guy that's a speed rusher, can also go out there and stop the run. Aiden Hutchinson is just more so a better pass rusher than him. But like I mentioned, it's not a horrible player. You look at Josh Allen. This man was very good last year. You signed him to a long-term contract extension. 7 sacks on the season. It's not bad. But he's not the same pass rusher he was last year. The problem that I have with their defense, they don't really get pressure that much. And you have 2 very good edge rushers. I compare this situation similar to TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. And I'm not calling Trayvon Walker or even Josh Allen TJ Watt. But when you look at the situation the Steelers have, they move their pass rushers around. You don't see this with Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. They're in the same places at the same time every single week. There's little to no adjustments with this defense, and they will sit back and play zone the entire time. When I go back and I look at the Atlanta Falcons defense last year, they played a lot of press man coverage. You don't really see that with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you can make the excuse that they're dealing with so many injuries and that this team is not suited for press man coverage, but you can make adjustments as a defensive coordinator. I've seen Ryan Nielsen do this in the past. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out this season. And you have Devin Lloyd, who I believe is a very good linebacker, but he's been regressing over the last few years due to terrible defensive play calls, and we saw this last season. You know who's bringing in the defensive coordinators? Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson did not have any problem firing the defensive coordinator from last season and bringing in a brand new defensive coordinator. Why not fire Press Taylor and bring in someone else also? Because he's close friends with Press Taylor. Trent Baalke is close friends with Doug Peterson. All three of those guys are very close friends outside the NFL, which is great for them, but sucks for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're running this franchise off of friendship. It's a lot of feelings involved. And I really do like Doug Peterson as a coach because he has some nice concepts. But for this team, it's not working out. And you don't even know what you really have in Trevor Lawrence because you have yet to scratch the surface with him. And I do believe that he's behind on his development because of this. Press Taylor is terrible. That first season with Doug Peterson was so good because they catered to Trevor Lawrence's strengths. Since then, they're trying to take a lot of deep shots down the field. They're trying to work underneath. And it's okay to work underneath. But when you're doing it the entire game and until late in the fourth quarter, it's not going to work out. And another problem that I have with this offense, Tank Bigsby has shown all season long that he is a better running back than ETN. But yet they still force him to be the main running back that they try to run this offense through. And Travis Etienne is not a bad running back. He's averaging 4 yards a carry, 391 rushing yards, only 2 rushing touchdowns. Tank Bigsby should be getting majority of the carries. Tank Bigsby should be the guy. In some games, he gets 18 carries. Then the next week, he's only getting 7 carries. Against the Minnesota Vikings, he only had 2 carries. You can't prioritize Travis Etienne over him, especially for this season, because Tank Bigsby is a better running back. I know they want to do the dual back system. It's not working out. They should have moved on from Travis Etienne. And I know that he's a college teammate with Trevor Lawrence. You have 2 very good running backs. You move on from Travis Etienne. You get something for him. But Tank Bigsby is a harder runner, especially in between the tackles, and he gives you more production coming out of that backfield. And when I look at Trevor Lawrence, and this will go into the Press Taylor situation and what happened in his rookie season. He had Urban Meyer as his head coach as a rookie. It was easy to make an excuse. Terrible situation for everyone involved. He made the NFL playoffs in year number 2. They went 8-3 at the beginning point of the season. A lot of that was because of how good Trevor Lawrence was working in that system. Even though the offensive play calls were bland, they're very generic, he still found a way to go out there and make things work. Trevor Lawrence has not taken that step. Trevor Lawrence is getting paid $275 million. He is in the same contract situation similar to Joe Burrow. He's no Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow led his team to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow has consistently been a top 3, top 5 at worst quarterback in the NFL. You can say that he's dealing with better weapons, but he's been behind some of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. When I look at Patrick Mahomes, he's not paid this much. He's doing something similar to what Tom Brady did with the New England Patriots, try to take a pay cut and make the rest of the team better. I wish more quarterbacks did that. Trevor Lawrence is not worth his contract right now. He's not a bad quarterback. I don't want to come in here and say that. It has been a bad situation, bad coaching, but he's missing wide receivers in open field. He doesn't have the same talent as a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. He's not in that conversation just yet. He still can be. But the further we get along with this Trevor Lawrence experiment, the further we get along from when he was drafted with the first overall pick. This was a man that was supposed to step in and turn his franchise completely around, with help, of course. And you can't make the case, well, he hasn't had help. Christian Kirk is not a true number 1, but he's a damn good wide receiver. He had over 1,000 yards receiving in that first year. And they're going to move off of that contract after this year, and I advise him to. He wasn't able to stay healthy last season, and he's missed majority of this season dealing with a broken collarbone injury. You can move off of him. They brought in Gabe Davis. Personally, I'm not a big Gabe Davis fan. I have my own reasons because I've seen him with the Buffalo Bills come up short in huge moments to when Josh Allen needed him the most. He would drop the football, but he's not a terrible wide receiver. They also had Calvin Ridley last season. The connection was not there most of the time, but when it was there, it was something special. He was a top deep threat in the NFL at the time. And right now, the Tennessee Titans, he's having a tough time, but he was a solid wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've tried to put the right pieces around Trevor Lawrence. It hasn't worked out just yet. A lot of it is because the offensive play calls are inconsistent and the offensive lines have been terrible. The wide receivers have been better than the offensive line. And these wide receivers on the season, they all combined for 21 drops. And a lot of the drops have been in the red zone. So I'm not going to blame all of this on Trevor Lawrence. Everyone deserves equal blame. The problem that I have when people in the national media, and especially with Jacksonville Jaguar fans, some of them, not all, they make it seem like Trevor Lawrence deserves 0% of the blame. I think two things can be true. Trevor Lawrence has not stepped up, and the team around him hasn't been good either on a consistent basis, especially that rookie season. But the wide receiver that they've given him, they're more than good enough to go out there and help him out. You have Brian Thomas Jr. now, who is the best wide receiver on the team and has potential to be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. We hear about Malik Neighbors, how special he is with the New York Giants. This kid is also special. He's putting up very good production with Mac Jones and also with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has also not been able to stay healthy. He hurt his ankle last season. That's what derailed their season when they were 8-3. And we look at him this season, dealt with a shoulder injury. He missed some games. He's going to miss the rest of the season because of that shoulder injury, and he was going to miss some time regardless because of the dirty hit that he suffered in the Houston Texans game. So when I look at Trevor Lawrence, solid quarterback at best over the last few years, he's just too inconsistent. Hopefully a coach can come in and fix this. Now, if you are a Jaguars fan, they're not going to go get Bill Belichick because now he's with UNC. He's back in college. I think a guy like Ben Johnson can come in and fix this whole thing. It was a report that came out that Ben Johnson has a lot of demands. Well, the Jaguar ownership have met demands with coaches in the past. I think that you throw the book at Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. You throw the book at him. You say, hey, we'll give you however much you want. And the Khan family, they can do this. They write him the checkbook. They say, have at it. Build this team your image. Because he's the same coordinator that went out there and saved Jared Goff's career, even though Jared Goff did go to the Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. Trevor Lawrence still has that potential. I'm not going to come on here and say, do away with him, move on from him. That's crazy. That's a crazy clickbait headline. If you see anyone saying, hey, move off of Trevor Lawrence, they're crazy. They just paid him a lot of money. They tanked for this kid. He doesn't suck. Trevor Lawrence is not a bottom tier quarterback. He is a slightly above average quarterback at worst. I think that he is good. I just don't think that he's worth that money right now. But the guy that we saw at Clemson, I don't think he will ever be that guy in the NFL. But can he be a top 5 to top 10 quarterback? I'm still holding out hope that he can be. But right now, he's not that guy. He needs coaching help. He needs offensive line help. And he needs more wide receivers. Unfortunately, Gabe Davis may be back for this team next season. Brian Thomas Jr. will definitely be back. You have Evan Ingram, who has been a very good tight end. He's dealt with injuries this season, but he was very good last year and the year before with the Jacksonville Jaguars. That first year was something special because he has so many drops with the New York Giants. This offensive line, they need work in the interior. Mitch Morse is an older player at the center position, and he's not good anymore. Brandon Scherf is on the back end of his career as well. Both the center and the guards are. And I look at the right and left tackle position. Walker Little, there's something there. You can develop him. And also, I look at Anton Harrison. I think he's a solid right tackle. So the tackle position, they're there. You have 2 bookend tackles you hope can be very good moving forward. You have a running back in Tank Bigsby. You have defensive talent. This is not a situation with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have nothing. Let's tear everything down. You need to tear down the coaching staff in the front office. But when I look at the quarterback, there's still something there with Trevor Lawrence. At his worst, he may be a better quarterback than Jared Goff, just slightly better. And Jared Goff can work in the NFL. We see that right now with the Detroit Lions, which is also another reason I would love to see Ben Johnson be the coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But he's going to be the hottest name. If it's not going to be Ben Johnson, call in Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, because he's done a very good job with that defense. This is a Jaguars team. They have talent. They're just missing coaching. Whether you bring in an offensive head coach or a defensive head coach, just bring in someone that's going to fill in the void and build a complete culture around Trevor Lawrence and this entire organization. You may go this route also. I'm just spitballing names here. Mike Vrabel. You got to see him up close and personal with the Tennessee Titans for many years. I think you could bring him in. He goes against that division rival. And with the Tennessee Titans, he had a lot of successful years. This is a Jaguars team. They have talent. They're just a couple of pieces away, and they're just a head coach away. Unfortunately, if you're a Jaguars fan, it's hard as hell to find the right head coach in the NFL. And they have been out there. They've been recycling coaches over the last few years. This is a Jaguars team. You have a quarterback. You paid him this money for a reason. Build around him. Build this offensive line. Build up this defense and get things going into the right direction. Even though Trevor Lawrence only had 11 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions on the season, he's not the reason why this defense was bad. They have given up a lot of touchdowns on opening drives. That has nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has went out there. He scored back-to-back touchdowns. The defense would give up 4 touchdowns in a row. That's not on Trevor Lawrence. That's on the defense. The defense has to be better moving forward. But everyone deserves blame here. And especially for what I'm seeing, they were also in some close football games beginning the year. Against the Miami Dolphins in week 1, if ETN does not fumble the football and they don't get that cheap play with Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill, they possibly win that game. Against the Cleveland Browns, they only scored 13 points. They lost that game 18-13. It was a crucial penalty, a legal shift in a goal line situation, and it cost them that football game late in the game. That could have been 2 wins right there, and that could change your entire season. But to see how the Jacksonville Jaguars got blown out by the Buffalo Bills, they were never going to be a contender this year because of Press Taylor and because of Doug Peterson. But they have talent on this team. I just want to see the Jacksonville Jaguars be good. And when you look at the division this season, the Houston Texans, very good team. You can make the case that they got lucky that every other team in this division has been bad. The Indianapolis Colts are figuring things out with Anthony Richardson. The Will Levis experiment right now with the Tennessee Titans isn't good. And you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Injuries have played a huge part and bad coaching. This division is not far off from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what is also another kick in the groin is the fact that CJ came out of nowhere and he looks like a franchise quarterback with the Houston Texans. When the Jaguars won this division, many people thought, hey, the Titans, they got rid of Derrick Henry's no longer a team. They traded A.J. Brown. Ryan Tannehill is gone. It's a new era for them. They're rebuilding. You look at the Houston Texans for many years. After they moved off Deshaun Watson, they were bad. They were not a good organization at that time. Now they completely flipped things around. But you see what a coach and a quarterback can do for a franchise? Look at what DeMeco Ryans and CJ did for the Houston Texans. Trevor Lawrence has to step up. And I believe you give him the right coach, he could possibly step up in that situation. But I know Bill Belichick will not be walking through the door. Maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing if you're a Jaguars fan. But let me know in the comment section below, did I miss anything? And am I being too harsh on Trevor Lawrence? I know in the past a lot of Jaguar fans said that I've been too harsh on Trevor Lawrence, but I'm going to stick with it, man. He hasn't lived up to that hype coming out of Clemson. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.